just because I'm a little excited today. Carney's going to be in the house. There's going to be a spicy question period. And we are getting committee after. We're going to have proc. So live stream links already in the chat there. I'll pin it up at the top and I'll repost it a few times before we switch over. But yeah, let's get to it.
Punishing Quebecers with their own money for their good behavior and climate responsibility. Quebec is being penalized for its efforts to fight climate change, and the Quebec National Assembly unanimously passed a motion calling on all federal parties to commit to returning Quebec's fair share of this payment, which it estimated at more than $800 million. So all members of all Quebec political parties supported this motion. And this is not even taking into account the price Quebecers pay for the impact of greenhouse gas emissions in Quebec in Canada outside of Quebec. And we learned today that Quebec, like other northern regions, is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet, with considerable damage to health and infrastructure. And this is because of the West. It should be added that Canada's turning its back on the carbon price threatens Quebec's economy at a time when more than ever we need to diversify our export markets, and when Europe is implementing a carbon border adjustment system for products from irresponsible countries such as Canada. Quebec accounts for 1/3 of Canada-Europe trade and attracts nearly 40% of European investment in Canada. It clearly has a strategic advantage. Quebec is, in a certain sense, a bridge between America and Europe, and the Bloc wants Quebec to double its trade with Europe, including the United Kingdom, within 5 years, from $42 billion to $84 billion. In 2023, the European Union adopted legislation, the EU Regulation 2023-956, creating the EU Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. And as of January 1st, 2026, in order to prevent carbon leakage and unfair competition, Europe will impose a tax adjustment on imports of certain products from countries with no or low carbon pricing. The United Kingdom has adopted similar legislation, and it did so in 2024, and it will apply as of January 1st, 2027. When a product enters Europe, the EU will impose an import tax equivalent to what the carbon pricing would have cost if it had been manufactured in Europe. The carbon adjustment is a new development, but tax adjustments at borders are common and consistent with trade rules. It should be noted that the World Bank has identified 73 carbon pricing mechanisms in 53 countries. And that is 69 more than 20 years ago. No country in the world has abolished carbon pricing, except for Canada, which is the first to do so. And through Quebec's carbon market system, we trade carbon credits with companies in California and in the state of Washington. In a world where pollution increasingly has a price, Quebec enjoys a clear competitive advantage thanks to its abundant zero-emission energy production. The Liberal government has abolished carbon pricing for individuals in Canada outside Quebec and is proposing to reform the industrial carbon tax without providing any further details. If it does decide to abolish it, it will further undermine efforts to diversify its exports and intensify its trade with Europe. Canada can still choose the path of energy transition, sustainable growth, economic and ecological viability, and climate justice. And we call on all members to support our motion, calling on the government to pay Quebec without conditions compensation equivalent to its contribution to the $3.7 billion expense, estimated at $814 million. This would be a step in the right direction to restore the public's confidence in justice for all in the fight against climate change. We must start by respecting Quebec consumers, taxpayers, and citizens, by responding positively to the unanimous demand of their elected representatives in the National Assembly of Quebec. This request from the Bloc Québécois is only a minimal demand to correct a clear and specific injustice. Thank you. Questions and comments?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is important to recognize right at the get-go that the province of British Columbia and the province of Quebec were not a part of the backstop which had the federal government participate in the consumer carbon tax. Now, the new Prime Minister and the new government have made a decision to get rid of the consumer carbon tax, but we still understand the importance of having the industrial carbon pricing system. And let's be very clear on that, because we understand the global market and the critical role that that has to play in it. It's only the Conservative Party of Canada that has decided to dunk their heads in the sand. My question to the member is, would he not agree that we should be actually focusing on trying to reverse the Conservative position in regards to the industrial carbon pricing, because it's in all of Canada's best interest to do so?
For La Pointe-de-l'Île.
The member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Naturally, we agree that we need to maintain the industrial carbon pricing. That's very important. But he really skirted the question. In this case, for election reasons, the Liberals decided to hand out, as they often do, election gifts. We're talking about $3.7 billion in total. And they even did this with Quebec taxpayers' money. They had to pay this and didn't receive anything in exchange. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The member for Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are pleased with the deathbed conversion the Liberals had in cancelling the carbon tax. But the Canadians are left with a carbon tax hangover because what they neglected to do was include a mechanism requiring prices to come down. Instead, the marketers have left prices for groceries the way they are instead of taking into account the reduced carbon tax. So the Liberals also left the industrial carbon tax on there. So my question to the member who just spoke is, one, should there be a mechanism to ensure Canadians do feel the full benefit of reducing and getting rid of the carbon tax? And by how much does he expect the industrial carbon tax to reduce forest fires in Quebec?
The Deputy.
The honourable member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. In fact, we think the opposite. We should not abolish the carbon tax. We think we should maintain it. And in terms of the industrial price, we'll see. But we didn't see anything in the Liberals' recent bill. We're looking forward to seeing something, because if the industrial carbon tax is not maintained or if it's increased, it will hamper trade and trade diversity with Europe. Questions and comments?
La députée pour...
The honourable member for Shefford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been listening to the exchanges since this morning, and there is something that the Liberals have not understood. And they are the ones who sent these election checks, but it doesn't seem to be clear in their minds. They don't understand the mechanism. And even their leader during the debate, when he was asked a question by the member for Belleuil-Chamblay, he showed that he didn't understand the system. And in short, this tax is paid upstream. So people receive the money even though they didn't pay the tax. So when they're refunding people, even though they didn't pay the tax, you don't need to be an economic specialist to understand that this money that came from everyone's tax, it came from the public purse. So we paid collectively in Quebec for this election gift. And because we have our own system, we were excluded from the refund. What does my colleague from La Pointe-de-l'Île think about this? The honourable member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. I agree with my colleague. Canadians had not paid the carbon tax for that period from April 1st. So the refund they received was an election gift, quite simply. And my colleague earlier from Quebec was saying no one asked to be refunded in Quebec. well, there was a lot of discussion about this in the press, and there was a unanimous motion from the Quebec National Assembly. So Liberal members from Quebec, well, even they couldn't understand that they were giving election gifts partially paid for Quebecers without even being included.
Resuming debate, reprise de débat. Je vais reconnaître le député.
I'll recognize the honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. He'll have roughly 5 minutes, and then we'll have to cut him off at 2 p.m. to start statements by members. And then he'll be able to continue after the vote. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Congratulations for being appointed to your position. I'm very proud of you. And I'd like to take advantage of my first formal speech to thank the people of Abitibi-Témiscamingue for their trust, strong confidence, despite this, the headwinds. And I'm very grateful, particularly to my team, my campaign team, starting with Gérard, Benjamin, Christian, Jean-François, and all of the others who I've forgotten. A very warm thank you. Mr. Speaker, allow me to set the stage. A few months ago, the federal government abolished the carbon tax. Canadian consumer paid what is known as the federal fuel charge. The tax did not apply to Quebec because of its carbon market. As a result, 4 times a year, Canadian consumers received the Canadian carbon rebate, which ranged from $200 to $450. The Bloc had no problem with this rebate. Yet, the check sent out during the election campaign was a real problem. Why? Because this rebate was paid by all Quebecers and all Canadians. And that's where the whole issue is, Mr. Speaker. As journalist Hélène Bouzetti wrote, this rebate has always been forward-looking and not retroactive, meaning that it was intended to cover what citizens would pay in taxes over the next 3 months. So on the Ministry of Finance's website, it states that payments made to Canadians in April defer the proceeds from fuel charges collected during the April to June quarter. So the April rebate was funded by the government's own coffers, and this means that everyone's money, including that of Quebecers, was used to pay for this rebate. So that's the whole injustice of the situation. Quebecers and British Columbians did not receive their share of this federal carbon rebate. No checks, nothing. In total, these payments cost $3.75 billion, a substantial portion of which, estimated at over $800 million, should have gone to Quebec. So, Mr. Speaker, why should Quebecers be excluded from a program that they helped to finance? And that's the whole question. How could you justify such an exclusion? We were told that Quebec was not affected by federal pricing because we had our own carbon market system in partnership with California since 2013. So, and good job on Quebec, because our system still works 10 years later. It's very robust. We're very proud of it. So this final reimbursement only affects residents in the rest of Canada. But that's the issue. Residents of the rest of Canada did not pay for it. All taxpayers did, contrary to what the Prime Minister claims. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not here to divide, but to call for the correction of this injustice. Quebec is not asking for any special treatment. It's simply asking for Quebecers to be treated with the same fairness as other Canadians and to receive the fair share of what we paid for. And I'd like to take this opportunity to point out that on April 23, 2025, the National Assembly of Quebec passed a motion calling on the federal government to return Quebec's fair share of the carbon rebate. And this motion was not a partisan demand. It represented the voice of all parties in the National Assembly. But what was the federal government's response? A categoric refusal. In order to make it easier for the federal government to correct this injustice to Quebecers, this check did not necessarily have to be sent directly to Canadians. The federal government could pay its fair share to Quebec and then choose the best way to redistribute the money to Quebecers. There could have been other measures to facilitate innovation. Quebec could grant this amount as a rebate on gas taxes, thus reducing the price disparity between Ontario and Quebec. Quebec has already taken a step in this direction by abolishing the minimum price for gas. Quebec could also do more by investing in its funds in the environment and energy transition. Because I was recently in Amos at an event organized by the Abitibi-Témiscamingue Youth Forum to encourage young people to participate in municipal elections. And these young people are driven by a desire to change things, and they're thinking about the future. They're not thinking about short-term gains. They're concerned about the future of our planet. Among First Nations, decisions must be made with the next 7 generations in mind. Unfortunately, I have to interrupt the honourable member. The honourable member will have roughly 4.5 minutes after the vote this afternoon.
Deputy statements by members. The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour the lives lost in the devastating attack at the Lapu Lapu Day Festival just 6 weeks ago in my riding of Vancouver Kingsway. 11 innocent people were taken from us by this horrific act of violence that occurred as Filipino Canadians gathered to proudly celebrate their history, culture, and achievements. To the loved ones of the victims, all who were affected, and the entire Filipino Canadian community, our nation stands with you in this time of unspeakable grief and sorrow. Much has been said about the profound resilience and faith of the Filipino people. While that is truly the case, we must ensure that they get the resources and justice they need and deserve. In the wake of this tragedy, let us come together, not just to recover, but to forge a stronger and more united country where everyone is safe, supported, and cherished.
Honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, Ola, as the Member of Parliament for Davenport, the riding with the largest number of Portuguese Canadians, I'm proud to rise in this House today to celebrate Portugal Day in Canada and to celebrate June as Portugal Heritage Month. It has been 72 years since the first group of Portuguese immigrants arrived at Pier 21 in Halifax. Today, Portuguese Canadians are almost 500,000 strong, representing one of the largest Portuguese diasporas in the world. Living in communities across our fair country, Portuguese Canadians are leaders in every single sector: business, politics, science, sports, arts, healthcare, construction, and so much more. Through their perseverance and hard work, they have enriched Canadian society and have transformed Canada into a stronger and better country. So to all members of this House and to all Canadians, I invite you to join in the celebrations today and every day this month, whether it's by listening to fado, drinking vinho verde, eating a bifana, pastéis de nata. Feliz Dia de Portugal e Feliz Mês de Portugal. Thank you.
The honourable member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, our political family in New Brunswick suffered a loss with the passing of Judy Scott O'Brien of Durham Bridge. The daughter of the late Anita and Darrell Scott, she is survived by her husband Mike O'Brien, her brother Don, and his wife Joyce, as well as nieces and nephews. Originally from Edmundston, Judy was a key resource for Premiers Richard Hatfield and Bernard Lord. While I did not know her personally, she is a very close friend of my family, and I'm aware of her legend. Judy was colourful, she was fiercely loyal, and she was a hard worker. She kept and loved horses. Judy loved politics, but also enjoyed her peaceful home in Durham Bridge and her trips to St. Martin with Michael. Please join me in offering condolences to the family and many friends of Judy Scott O'Brien.
The honourable member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, as it is my first time rising in this Parliament, I would like to take the opportunity to express my appreciation and thanks to the people of Port Coquitlam and Coquitlam for electing me to a 4th term in this place. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased about an important initiative in British Columbia in the Lower Mainland to save our local news. Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, Burnaby, New Westminster, Enmore, and Belcarra lost local news coverage when Glacier Media shuttered their papers. People no longer know what's happening in their council chambers, read news about their Little League teams, or learn about that new cookie shop in their downtowns. Last week I learned about the Save Our Local News campaign. Headed by former local reporters Janice Clue, Camelia Naylor, Mario Bartel, and Teresa McManus, they will create a new, reliable news outlet with the support of Unifor. Mr. Speaker, please join me to save our local news. Thank you.
The honourable member for Acadie-Annapolis.
Mr. Speaker, it's an incredible honour for me to rise today in this 45th Parliament as elected member for the extraordinary riding of Acadie-Annapolis. I want to sincerely thank the residents of Acadie-Annapolis for once again placing their trust in me to be their voice in Ottawa. Mr. Speaker, this past week has been very difficult for me personally and for my family. In the span of just a few days, I've had to say goodbye to 3 people who were incredibly close to my heart. My beloved mother-in-law, Ella Muse, a woman of grace, care, and warmth, whose gentle spirit touched everyone that she met. She was an important part of my life for over 40 years. My wife, Anne, will dearly miss her mom, and my 2 boys, their beloved grand-mère. Braden Muse, my cousin's son, only 18, full of potential, tragically taken too soon. He'll be missed dearly by his friends and family. Blair
Boudreau, a giant in our Acadian community, a proud, passionate, and tireless defender of our language, culture, and history. He leaves behind a profound and enduring legacy.
Eternal, Mr. Speaker, may we honor them by living with the same love, strength, and purpose that they brought to this world. May they rest in peace.
The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, June 10th is Portugal Day, and Portuguese people all around the world are celebrating it. It's a sacred moment when we honor the soul of our nation, embodied by the great poet Luís de Camões, whose epic poem passionately recounts the history and indomitable spirit of the Portuguese people. Portuguese Canadians are known for their hard work, family solidarity, and unwavering love of our roots. It's these values that have enabled us to overcome challenges and contribute strongly to the fabric of this country. Happy Portugal Day.
The other weekend, I had the honour of kicking off the cricket season with SOCA, the Southern Ontario Cricket Association. Founded in 1883 under the leadership of Praveen, Dr. Harry, President Gary, and Vice President Karthik, SOCA has grown into a community of 79 teams. Today, SOCA runs leagues for women, children, and seniors, creating a truly inclusive cricket community. In the Waterloo region, SOCA serves 8,000 members where they find friendship, purpose, and pride. Through sport, they're growing leaders, role models, and stronger communities. Praveen Sharma has dedicated over 31 years growing this organization. Praveen has been the backbone of local cricket running programs long before it had the visibility it enjoys today. Mayor Barry has been tremendous, supporting over the years. His advocacy at the municipal level has played a key role in helping the league thrive in our Waterloo region. This is exactly the kind of community building I'm very proud to support. I wish you a very successful season. Thank you.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, Jimmy Lai, a 77-year-old pro-democracy advocate and journalist, stands for values cherished by Canadians: media freedom and the rule of law. Despite his age and health issues, Mr. Lai remains imprisoned in torturous conditions under Hong Kong's repressive national security law, the provisions of which are inconsistent with international human rights law. On March 2024, the Subcommittee on International Human Rights issued a news release calling for the release of Jimmy Lai and expressed their solidarity with everyone advocating for freedom and justice in Hong Kong, echoing that Jimmy Lai stood up for truth and for his fellow Hong Kongers, and now we must stand up for him. Parliament has a proud tradition of supporting such individuals, as shown in 2023 when it granted honorary Canadian citizenship to Russian dissident Vladimir Murza. I now call upon the Government of Canada to make Jimmy Lai be made an honorary citizen of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, Today, the Auditor General released another scandalous report on the contract for new F-35 fighter jets for the Canadian military. In her report, she strongly criticizes the Liberal government's handling of this process. She points out that the project has exceeded its budget by more than 50% and now costs nearly $30 billion. And that doesn't include the weapons and infrastructure required to meet the requirements, which will cost at least another $5.5 billion. Finally, she points out that there's also a serious shortage of pilots to fly the F-35s once they're delivered. People of Beauce are asking, when will this government start managing their money more seriously? Maybe they should start by tabling a budget this spring, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-La-Matapédia. To salute Victor Beaulieu, we've lost one of our most bold and outstanding representatives. He left us aged 70 years old. His essays and plays and novels will remain behind. L'indigné, l'insoumis, l'indépendantiste, and he loved his part of the country. Victor Lévy-Beaulieu was one of the greats, and he was the creator of Razamonde, L'Héritage, and other works that marked Quebecers. For years, millions of us watched his stories on TV and his characters that were larger than life, like Ossidosé des Debords. And his characters used the colorful language of the Québécois. To his family and loved ones, our most sincere condolences.
Cumberland Colchester.
This past week, the Truro Farm Equipment Museum marked their 35th anniversary of preserving agricultural heritage in Nova Scotia. Museums like this are so much more than the antique tractors and plows on display. They are keepers of stories that matter, stories of families working the land and building our society from the ground up. Our rural communities have always been laboratories of innovation and resilience. For generations, our farmers have fed entire communities while protecting the land for future generations. As elected representatives are called to act on the biggest challenges of the 21st century, we would do well to learn from that same spirit of ingenuity and cooperation historically found in agricultural communities across Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Markham-Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to acknowledge today's scathing Auditor General's report on the current and future use of office space. The report noted that the Liberals promised to reduce office space by 50%, along with $1.1 billion over 10 years to do so. However, the Auditor General found that the office space reduction will only be 33%, and the result shows the absolute failure on the Liberals to get the housing built after years of flashy announcements, and all they have are endless broken promises. The report promises that it takes 6 to 8 years to dispose of surplus buildings, a completely unacceptable and costly timeline. Mr. Speaker, as millions of Canadians are struggling to find affordable housing, this latest report confirms just how out of touch and unhelpful this same old Liberal government has been. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, this week marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the United Church of Canada, established by an Act of Parliament exactly 100 years ago today. In my riding of Winnipeg South Centre, several United Church congregations, including Yonge, Augustine, Fort Garry, Westminster, Harrow, and Crescent Fort Rouge, gathered this past weekend for a special service of celebration and thanksgiving. I want to thank Reverend Mark Whitehead and all of those who helped to organize this meaningful gathering at Crescent Fort Rouge. For a century, Mr. Speaker, the United Church has stood alongside communities across Canada, not only as a spiritual home to many, but also as a place of welcome, community, and support, offering a wide range of programming and services to residents of all backgrounds. On this special anniversary, I want to extend my congratulations and gratitude to the United Church of Canada for 100 years of ministry, leadership, and hope, all in service of community. Thank you.
The The honourable member for Algonquin Renfrew Pembroke.
The Auditor General's investigation into the Liberals' purchase of the F-35 fighter jets is shocking. It's over budget and behind schedule. Costs are up 50%. The new facilities to house the jets won't be completed until 2031. That is 3 years too late, forcing taxpayers to spend even more money on temporary hangars. The investigation also confirmed that what we have known since 2018. We don't have enough pilots. Canada was once the pilot training ground for the Commonwealth during World War II. Thanks to these Liberals, we send our recruits to Italy to learn to fly. This lost Liberal decade has left Canadians unsafe and insecure in an increasingly dangerous world. These out-of-control costs, repeated construction delays, and lack of staff threaten to delay the replacement of the fighter jets. Now, they want billions more to waste. Under these Liberals, Canadians are paying so much while getting so little in return.
The honourable member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, today, wherever people of Portuguese descent gather, they celebrate Portugal Day, Camões Day, and Portuguese Communities Day. What we celebrate on this day is, above all, what has shaped Portuguese culture over the centuries. Not a military feat, not a conquest, not even the discoveries. We celebrate cartography and azulejos, the symbiotic relationship with the oceans, and the delicious use of its treasures. Portuguese culture, well represented by natas, is also a rich and renowned literature from Camões to Fernando Pessoa, from Essa de Queiroz to José Saramago, fado, which moves us from cradle to grave, but it's also delicious, simple cuisine enhanced by the spices discovered in the 16th century and the judicious use of sea salt. Finally, being Portuguese, whether in Portugal or in the diaspora, means experiencing all these facets without too much homesickness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, today's Auditor General's report is another damning indictment that the Liberals have lost control on their rampant spending on consultants. GC Strategies, the consulting firm with links to ArriveScam, they cut 106 service contracts worth $92.7 million. This is the same company found in contempt of Parliament for refusing to answer questions, and they were called to this very House to answer those questions. But the scandal, of course, compounds from there. The AG found that in a third of the contracts awarded, there was no evidence the consultants had the required experience. Massive security clearance failures failed to prove that the fees paid did not match market rates, and the most damning of all, endless reams of...
Okay, we're going to switch over to Pierre for a sec. We are going to switch right back over to question period when it starts.
Of Liberal incompetence and an orgy of Liberal waste. We have here GC Strategies, the company the Liberals gave over 100 separate contracts from 31 different departments, which is under RCMP investigation. The contracts were for IT, even though GC Strategies does not actually do IT work. We all remember this is the same contractor that did the unnecessary and useless COVID app that was way over budget and could have been completed for a fraction of the cost. We now know that in other contracts, the government overpaid. They often didn't even check what the market rate was for the services that they were buying. Quote, actions of the federal government frequently did not demonstrate value for money. Federal government made payments without evidence that all the deliverables were received. Translation, they paid even when they didn't see that the job was done. So 46% of the contracts examined, there was no evidence that the work was completed, and yet the government paid for it. It'd be like if you walked into a restaurant, you were never served a meal, but you paid the bill anyway and added a big tip and sent off the bill to the taxpayer. That's what Liberals have done with your money in this case. So now, who's responsible?
On the top ArriveScam fraudster GC Strategies. This two-person basement dwelling company feasted on $64 million taxpayer dollars. This was a direct gift from the Liberal government who allowed basic procurement rules to be completely ignored over the last 10 years. Canadians still don't know who did the work, what was done, if they were qualified, if they had security clearances. This is complete government incompetence. The ask is simple. When will taxpayers get their money back?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. I thank the Auditor General for her service. I note that GC strategy has been prohibited from government contracts for 7 years, and it's that standard, the minimum.
That's false.
As a member of Canada's new government and a new member of Parliament, we will uphold higher standards, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, shockingly, the very same Liberal ministers who had their fingerprints all over the Arise scam are still in Cabinet today, right? Namely the Jobs Minister, the U.S. Trade Minister, and his Foreign Affairs Minister. Their lack of ministerial responsibility is both negligent and inexcusable. The fraudulent payment of $64 million isn't just about reckless spending, it's a total waste of taxpayer dollars and a betrayal of Canadians who are living through a cost of living crisis. So I ask the Prime Minister again, when will taxpayers get their money back?
That's a good question.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the members opposite for supporting the Making Life More Affordable Act to get taxpayer dollars back to Canadians. And commit. This government is committed. This new government is committed to making the best use of all taxpayers' dollars.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General just slammed these Liberals in her report this morning and said what we've known all along. The Liberals have broken our military. Today's F-35 report criticized the Liberals for misleading cost projections that are 50% higher by over $14 billion, ongoing construction delays for necessary infrastructure, ignoring the severe pilot and mechanic shortage, and implementing weak oversight mechanisms. The ministers who are responsible for this debacle are still sitting in here. Will the Prime Minister hold them accountable for this mess?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know if the member opposite holds himself accountable for letting military spending fall below 1% of GDP.
He wasn't in government.
Conservative, you're in government. This government has doubled military spending in cash terms. We are meeting our NATO obligations this year, leading from the front.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Prime Minister, we actually delivered for our military. We bought brand new 5 CF-18 Glowmasters, new Hertz, new Leopard tanks, new Chinook helicopters. We delivered. Instead, what we got here is an Auditor General report referenced her 2018 report on the Canada's fighter jets. That report said the biggest obstacle to meeting operational requirements was a shortage of fighter pilots and technicians. Over the last Liberal decade, the Liberals have worsened this capability gap through mismanagement and completely ignoring the Auditor General's recommendations. So, the question is, the Foreign Minister who is responsible for the military back in 2018 is still in his cabinet. Why?
Good question.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to stand yesterday with the Minister of National Defence, the Chief of the Defence Force, and announce the largest increase in military expenditure in decades. Building our military strong, building our military with Canadian technology, Canadian jobs, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum. That's what the review of the F-35 is about. That's what the future of this country is about.
The honourable member for Charles-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General severely has criticised the government's management of the F-35 fighter purchase. It's now 50% over budget, $30 billion in costs. There are delays in construction, a lack of personnel, and insufficient oversight are threatening this project, and Canadians are paying the price. And the Prime Minister seems to have forgotten to mention that the new money announced yesterday is just to pay these cost overruns. He promoted the former Defence Minister. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, one of the first measures that I took one of the first measures that I took was a review of the F-35 contract. Because we have to do what's right for Canadians, what's right for Canada, what's right for our security, and we will report back to Parliament over the summer. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. The Prime Minister is the only thing that's new in this government, because the rest of the government is an old government, and we're seeing the problems with this incompetent old government. We've learned today, Mr. Speaker, from the Auditor General, that the main subcontractor of Arrive scam got $64 million from this Liberal government, even if it was under investigation by the RCMP. GC Strategies is a company with just 2 employees. It got 106 contracts from 31 federal organizations for a total value of $92.7 million. Is that Liberal incompetence, or is it corruption, or is it both? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, last year, after an independent process, the government suspended that company for 7 years. It's done. It's over. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, sit down. It's a little complicated. The Prime Minister gave Canadians back money that they had not paid. So it's an advance for a sum of money that they will not pay back. So about $4 billion was distributed to Canadians a week before the election, but not a cent to Quebecers. Can the Prime Minister explain this to Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I am proud that we cancelled the carbon tax. Quebec and British Columbia have their own systems. Our decision, including the decision on the last payment of the rebate, involves the rest of Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, it's completely illogical, Mr. Speaker. You pay back those who pay, not those who don't pay. But now that we know clearly that this has nothing to do with a carbon tax that was cancelled or that was criticised by the OECD, and we can understand that this money was a gift before the election and an injustice, does he recognize that the $3.7 billion that were given to Canadians have nothing to do with climate change? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Quebec, Mr. Speaker, Quebec didn't pay that consumer carbon tax. So it's not unjust, it's coherent that the rebate would continue one last time to allow an adjustment for families across Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I would be very happy to explain this because the carbon tax that applies in Quebec since 2013, I put it in place as Minister of the Environment. I'd be happy to explain that. The Prime Minister clearly is better with numbers than with facts. Will he compensate Quebecers for the $814 million that he owes them? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Bloc leader has just said, he created Quebec's own carbon tax system. It was different, and it's different across the country, including British Columbia. Our approach is coherent, it's fair, it's done.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has once again exposed Liberal incompetence, highlighting millions wasted on their good friends and favourite consultants, GC Strategies. Not only have the Liberals not clawed back one penny from this scam, every Trudeau minister with his fingerprints on the scandal has been promoted by this Prime Minister. And now the Liberals are planning an extra $26 billion of taxpayer money for their insider consultant friends. Now, how about spend less
on your insider friends and invest more in clawing back the money from GC Strategies.
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, I'll note that in March 2024, my department has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies and has revoked its security clearance so that it renders it ineligible for contracts that require that security clearance. But we went even further. The Office of Supplier Integrity last week determined that GC Strategies was ineligible for 7 years. This is a free, independent process, holding bad actors to account, working exactly as it should, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
So get the money back.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Ended years after they were exposed. Now, $64 million went to Liberal friends at GC Strategies. Rampant sole sourcing of contracts with no justification and projects paid for despite no work being done. Incompetence is so ingrained in this government, they've actually ordered officials to put in writing that they are not violating procurement rules when they're granting contracts. Now the Liberals want $26 billion more for these consultants. When will the Liberals turn off the taps to their friends and focus instead on clawing back the money from this fraudulent GC Strategies?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report and highlight that we have acted on previous reports by the Auditor General, and also from internal audits to increase transparency, increase data collection, increase oversight. But I also note, Mr. Speaker, that last year my department has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies, has revoked its security clearance, and as of last week, the Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for contracts for 7 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Midnapore.
If you're spending $64 million on a product, you would probably think to at least do some price comparisons. Yet the Liberal government did no such thing. The Auditor General said that in 82% of GC Strategies contracts examined, there was no evidence that fees were being charged by this two-person company were based on a fair market value. Is this the Prime Minister's idea of a new fiscal discipline? Or does price really not matter to Liberals when it comes to paying their well-connected friends? When will we get our money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, let me be absolutely clear. Misconduct of any kind in the procurement process is never acceptable, which is why we've acted on previous recommendations from the Auditor General. And as of last year, GC Strategies has seen its contracts terminated by the Government of Canada, and we've revoked their security clearance. Now we went even further. The Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for 7 years, Mr. Speaker. This is a process that's free and independent, holding bad actors to account, and it is working as it should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary Midnapore.
Check for fair market value. Canadians could hope that at least we got something in return for $64 million. Not the case here. This is how Liberals are spending your money. Overpaid and nothing to show for it. The Auditor General said only 54% of contracts audited could prove deliverables were received. Is this the Prime Minister's new fiscal discipline? Or for Liberals, is it business as usual? When will we get our money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation and
As I've highlighted in previous answers, in March 2024, PSPC has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies. We revoked their security clearance. Now, the Office of Supplier Integrity, which we've put in place after a thorough investigation, determined that GC Strategies met the threshold to be found ineligible for government contracts. As such, they are ineligible for the next 7 years. This is a process to hold bad actors accountable because we will never accept and tolerate misconduct in the procurement process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, money doesn't grow on trees, but it sure seems to grow in the coffers of Liberal government insiders and contractors. Today we learned through the Auditor General's blistering report that 31 service procurement contracts had been awarded to GC Strategies for $92 million. Wow. The ministers didn't enforce security, the ministers didn't monitor contracts, and they didn't follow proper procurement policies. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? These same Trudeau ministers are in today's cabinet.
Who is running that circus over there, and when will the Canadian taxpayer get their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, following a thorough investigation by the Officer of Supplier Integrity, last week a determination was made that GC Strategies should be ineligible for the next 7 years. This is a free and independent process we've put in place to hold bad actors to account, and it is working exactly as it should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable-Lotbinière. Well, it's clear, Mr. Speaker, a Liberal is a scandal, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General was very clear this morning in her report on GC Strategies, the Liberal ArriveCan app. This company, 2 people, $64 million in payments from the Liberals. The report reveals that we don't know who did the work, what was done, were the people who did the work qualified to do the work, and did they have the security clearance to do it? We don't know. And the ministers who allowed this, well, they all got promotions, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberal Prime Minister get the money back that his government took from every Canadian's pocket? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In March 2024, PSPC ended all contracts with GC Strategies. We revoked the company's security clearance. They are ineligible for any government contract that requires security, and that was already the case. But last week, the government rendered a decision which makes GC Strategies inadmissible for any government contract for the next 7 years. This is an independent process that's working exactly the way that it should. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, GC Strategies didn't force the government to pay it $64 million. $64 million for an application that didn't work, that wasn't safe, which cost a lot more than expected. The ministers who authorized that spending are either members of the Cabinet or in the Prime Minister's inner circle. Marco Mendicino, who's now the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff and a former Public Safety Minister. The former Minister who's now the Labour Minister. A scandal, a promotion. Is that how it works in Liberal world, Mr. Speaker? When will any of these ministers be declared ineligible? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear. We will never accept any misbehavior from our providers. In March 2024, PSPC ended all contracts with GC Strategies and took away its security clearance. And last year, an independent board ensured that GC Strategies will be ineligible for any government contract for the next 7 years. This is a process that we put in place to make sure that any supplier do the work properly. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. Mr. Speaker, if Ottawa is reinvesting in defence, that money needs to go into Quebec's economy. It needs to go to our aerospace sector, to our shipbuilding sector, to our AI sector, among others. We need to hire Quebec's suppliers instead of giving our money to the Americans, as we did with the F-35s. That's why the Bloc Québécois is proposing a bill for local purchasing to promote our businesses and make sure that there are economic benefits here. So the government's going to reinvest in the government. Will they follow the Bloc's lead? The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we are proud to support Canadians and the Canadian Armed Forces. We will meet the 2% goal set by NATO. And that is also an investment in our defence industry here in Canada. There are about 300,000 jobs in Canada linked to the defence sector, and this investment will allow us to increase that number. We will obviously do what it takes for our Canadian Armed Forces. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. Mr. Speaker, over 60% of aerospace in Canada is in Quebec, and that needs to be reflected in the contracts. Expertise in icebreakers, well, it's Quebec's shipbuilding industry that has it. And let's remember that Quebec didn't get its fair share in the shipbuilding strategy. AI is another strength in Quebec. That also needs to be reflected in the contracts. Quebec deserves at least 22% of all defence investments, its fair share. But will the Minister commit to making that a floor for investment in Quebec? The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, this is good news for Canada, for Canadians, and for our Canadian Armed Forces. Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced an investment of $9.3 billion in Canada's defence. This means that we will hit this fiscal year the 2% target set by NATO. We are strengthening Canada's role as an international partner that is strong and reliable within NATO while rebuilding and rearming our Canadian Armed Forces.
Member for Thornhill.
The Auditor General's new report on housing shows just how badly this government has failed Canadians. Since 2018, the government spent over $300 million to fund a new bureaucracy called the Federal Lands Initiative. It built 309 units. That's less than 50 units a year. That's over $1 million a unit. Now the Prime Minister says he's going to create another bureaucracy to do exactly the same thing. So how much more Canadians' money will be flushed down the drain to pay for bureaucracies rather than paying for building homes?
L'honorable ministre. The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report regarding office space and federal lands, and I'll note that we accept all recommendations, but I also know that she highlights that progress has been made, and we're on the way to meeting our objectives in terms of affordable housings on public lands, on federal lands, and this is very good news for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, when you accept the findings and you do the exact same thing, Canadians who need a place to live are the ones that end up paying the price. The Federal Lands Initiative, the crown jewel of the government's agenda on building housing, has attained just 7% of its target. Wow. And the people in charge of that initiative are the now Justice Minister and the now Finance Minister. Wow. They actually got promoted. In the real world, incompetence of this magnitude has consequences. So I have a simple question. Which one of them's getting fired?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm new to this place and thankful for the opportunity to be here. This new government is focused on moving forward and building affordable housing, using the federal lands that we can make available and partnering in good faith with mayors, with premiers, with chiefs, working in partnership and in synergy with all levels of government, leveraging federal lands. We will do that.
The Honourable Member for Bowmanville, Oshawa North.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals have spent over $300 million on a housing program, claiming they would build 4,000 units. In 7 years, they built 309. To put it bluntly, that's not close at all. They've missed the mark by 93%. So the question I have for the Prime Minister is how can he continue to have the minister responsible for this failure in his cabinet? And how can he promote that failed minister to now be our Minister of Justice?
Great question. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We have a great opportunity here to build housing, and when you look at the pathetic performance of Housing Minister Pierre, who delivered six affordable housing units.
16 years ago, man?
And 0 in the city of Vancouver, where I was serving.
Yeah,
0.
That's right.
That's a record that is deplorable, and that's a record that this government will never repeat. We are focused on building big.
Still blaming Harper.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
On Vancouver Island, high prices are pushing thousands of families and seniors out of the housing market. Meanwhile, the Auditor General says government is sitting on empty office buildings and surplus land. They promised 4,000 homes through their signature housing initiative. After 7 years, they've delivered a measly 309. For this failure, the housing minister has been promoted to the justice portfolio. There's no justice in that, Mr. Speaker. How can the Prime Minister reward such failure while people in my riding are struggling to find a place to live?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, I'm very honoured to be here as the new Housing and Infrastructure Minister and to go forward with initiatives that will deliver affordable housing across Canada. We will look for the support of the members opposite. We will look for partnerships with all levels of government to deliver that. We use all of the tools of the federal government to deliver with Build Canada Homes. We have a lot of opportunities ahead of us. We've got to stay focused and working together.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the government found that 50% of federal offices were vacant or underutilised. The Liberals said they would cut that number in half to create housing. 8 years later, the Auditor General has confirmed a less than 2% reduction. None of the 10 properties promised in the capital have been transferred, and barely 309 of the 4,000 housing units have been built. Once again, big talk, but absolutely no walk. Why is the Liberal government failing to deliver even when the need is so great and the money has already been budgeted? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we accept all of the recommendations therein to make sure that we meet our objectives when it comes to federal spaces and rental spaces. In the report, however, she also clearly maintains that we are on target for affordable housing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now more than ever, it's critical to invest in Canadian industry as we rebuild Canada's national defence capabilities. For example, in my riding, Cove is leading the way in creating solutions and sustainable growth for Canada's marine and maritime sectors.
Good stuff.
Can the Minister please expand on the government's plan to rebuild, reinvest in, and rearm our Canadian armed forces?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday this government announced a generational $9.3 billion investment in Canada's national defence. This means that we will reach NATO's 2% spending target this fiscal year, Mr. Speaker. Reaching NATO's 2% target also means rebuilding our defence industrial capacity here at home and in Nova Scotia. There are almost 300,000 jobs across Canada in the broader defence sector, and this investment will grow that number. We will ensure Canada remains strong, sovereign and secure, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, we know how things work on the other side. Incompetence is rewarded. Today's Auditor General report reveals that the budget for our F-35s is 50% higher than expected. Initially, the project costs presented in 2022 by National Defence were based on 2019 data. In addition, the construction of infrastructure for the F-35s in Bagotville and Cold Lake is now 3 years behind schedule. Why are the Liberals unable to meet deadlines and stop cost overruns? The Honourable Minister for National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we'd like to thank the Auditor General for her work. In such a big project, it's normal for prices to evolve over time, especially with all the challenges that we have had to deal with through inflation and during the pandemic. National Defence and the government are working hand in hand with industry. These are very significant investments, the biggest investment in over 30 years. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, it's difficult for me to find the words to describe how badly the purchase of our F-35s has been managed. The costs are skyrocketing, now reaching almost $30 billion. There is a shortage of pilots and technicians, and we've been talking about this since 2018. Construction of facilities is behind schedule, with completion now expected in 2031. Mr. Speaker, this government is always late. Is it ready or is it incompetent? The Honourable Minister for National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we'd like to thank the Auditor General once again for her work and recommendations. We are committed to being open and transparent. National Defence will inform Canadians at every step of this process without compromising operational security. National Defence is keeping a close eye on costs and is working hand in hand with industry to make sure that we get the best cost for Canadians.
For Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has reported that the cost of the F-35 jets has increased by billions, by almost 50%. I have a simple question. Are these increased costs included in the Prime Minister's recently announced plan to meet NATO's 2% target by April 1st of next year?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we thank the Auditor General for her work. In a project this big, it's normal for costs to fluctuate over time, especially with all the challenges faced during the pandemic, like supply chain disruptions and inflation, as many F-35 participating NATO members have actually experienced. National Defence is working hand in hand with industry to make sure we get good value for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we are making the biggest investment in the Royal Canadian Air Force in over 30 years. This is about giving our aviators the tools they need to keep Canada safe.
Honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, Finland is also undertaking this big project. They announced their purchase of F-35 jets around the same time Canada did in early 2022. Finland purchased 64 jets, Canada 88. The Auditor General has reported that facilities and training for the F-35s are years behind schedule. The Finns' F-35s will achieve full operational capability in 2030. This government won't achieve that until at least 2033-34, years behind the Finns. Why can't the government deliver these jets on time and on budget?
Right. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we thank the Auditor General for her work and her recommendations. We're taking close note of them and moving to implement many of them already. We're committed to being open and transparent, where national defence will keep Canadians updated every step of the way without compromising operational security. I'm sure the member doesn't imply that we should be doing so. National defence is keeping a close eye on costs, working hand in hand with industry to make sure we get the best value for Canadians. We remain focused, Mr. Speaker, on supporting our top Canadian aviators as we procure a new fleet of fighter jets.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Today's Auditor General reports reveals the shocking contempt that this Liberal government has for matters of national security. They can't demonstrate that security clearances were held by 50% of the contracts that they awarded to GC Strategies. And in more than 20% of the cases, contractors were working without the required clearances. They didn't check before the work began. They don't know if the work got done. There weren't security clearances for the workers, but they cut the checks anyway. And then this Prime Minister gave the ministers responsible a promotion. So through you, Speaker, will the Prime Minister stand up today and tell us when we get our money back?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I noted in previous answers, in March 2024, PSPC revoked the security clearance of GC Strategies. We've also terminated all contracts because we will always hold bad actors to account. And last week, the Office of Supplier Integrity rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for the next 7 years. This is a process that is independent, that is free of political intervention, to hold bad actors to account, and it is working exactly as it should.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, I'm glad the Minister knows that that's working exactly as it should, because they don't know that about any of the work GC Strategies did. $100 million, no deliverables can be proven, no security clearances were had, and the Minister's talking about them not doing work in the future. Fine. What we want to know is about the work they didn't do in the past that Canadians paid $100 million for. So, to the Minister, through you, Speaker, stand up, tell us what date are Canadians getting their $100 million back, when?
L'honorable ministre de la Transformation du gouvernement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report. As I've mentioned earlier, the Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision last week making GC Strategy ineligible for future contracts by the Government of Canada. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals handed $20 million taxpayer dollars to GC Strategies for their Arrive scam. This for a company that did no work, whose office was raided by the RCMP and is implicated in fraud. And today we learned from the Auditor General that millions more went to GC Strategies without any proof that work was done. This is absolutely outrageous. When can taxpayers expect a refund?
When? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we've acted on all recommendations she's made in previous reports as well as internal audits. And as I've noted earlier, the Office of Supplier Integrity last week made a decision to make GC Strategy ineligible for future contracts for a period of 7 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good answer.
Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General found no proof of work for a staggering 46% of contracts awarded to GC Strategies.
Wow.
And yet, these Liberals consistently authorized payment. Millions of taxpayer dollars went improperly out the door without any meaningful oversight. So, who over there is going to stand up, take responsibility, and get taxpayers their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've noted, we've acted on all recommendations by the Auditor General in previous report. I thank her for her work. We will always hold bad actors to account. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, last week the Office of Supplier Integrity made a decision to make GC Strategy ineligible for future contracts for a period of 7 years. This is a process that's working as it should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
$64.5 million. That's how much taxpayer money this Liberal government gifted their friends over at the top, Arrive scam contractor. Friends, Mr. Speaker, who are now under RCMP investigation, yet the Trudeau ministers responsible for this scandal, far from being held accountable, have actually been promoted to the Ministers of U.S. Trade, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Jobs. So my question to the Prime Minister is, when will there be some actual accountability for the millions of dollars in fraud, and when will the hardworking men and women of this country get their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, and let me be very clear, misconduct of any kind by suppliers is never acceptable, and we will always hold bad actors to account. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the Office of Supplier Integrity last week made a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for contracts for a period of 7 years. We've also terminated in March 2024 all contracts with GC Strategies, revoked their security clearance. We will always hold bad actors to account. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, Quebec operates its own carbon pricing system, which has proved effective in reducing pollution. Today, the Bloc Québécois is asking the federal government for a refund, even though Quebec had decided not to participate in the federal carbon pricing system. So essentially, the Bloc Québécois is asking for its cake and to eat it too. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister for Environment and Climate Change tell the Bloc the truth? The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. The carbon pricing rebate has been in place for many years. Quebec has its own carbon pricing system, and the federal fuel charge does not apply in Quebec. Therefore, Quebecers did not receive the Canadian carbon rebate. We respect Quebec and have been consistent on this issue. The Bloc Québécois should support our efforts to fight climate change and protect our environment, rather than just playing petty politics.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
The Auditor General tabled a scathing report today on how the Liberals paid GC Strategies, which is now under RCMP investigation, $64 million. In 46% of the contracts reviewed, federal organizations had little to no evidence of receiving deliverables, yet government officials continued to pay. Given the ministers responsible have yet to get the money back from these fraudsters, how did they get promoted into this Prime Minister's cabinet?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
I thank the Auditor General for her report, and for previous reports she's made on this matter. We've acted on all of her recommendations to increase accountability, transparency, data collection, and to clarify the rules, the roles, and the responsibilities. And let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker, we will always hold bad actors to account. As a matter of fact, we've revoked the security clearance of GC Strategies. The Office of Supplier Integrity has acted on GC Strategies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
$64 million in fraudulent spending on GC Strategies and not a cent returned. Today's Auditor General reports have slammed this government. The F-35s are 50% over budget, up from $19 billion to nearly $30 billion, with more increases expected. Millions spent on transforming office space into housing and no homes built. Why, under this Liberal government, are Canadians spending so much and getting so little?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Par rapport aux espaces.
Thank you. With regards to the office space, I would like to thank the Auditor General, and we accept all the recommendations that she has submitted to the government. I would like to note that in her report she notes that we are on track to meet our affordable housing goals.
Today's Auditor General report show the true extent of Liberal incompetence and waste. Taxpayers are on the hook for $14 billion in F-35 fighter jet overruns, and the Arrive Scam report confirms that a two-person firm received $64 million in contracts for little to no work, and $0 have been returned to the taxpayer. And what does this Prime Minister do? He promotes the very ministers responsible for these scandals into his own cabinet. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, U.S. Trade, and the Minister of Jobs as well. If he's rewarding these failed ministers, how can Canadians expect receiving a penny of the money back?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, because the member mentioned the Canadian Armed Forces, this government is proud to champion the outstanding work of the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces. Last month, our forces were deployed on Operation Carib, where they successfully conducted seizures of more than 1,300 kilograms of cocaine in the Caribbean Sea. This month, our forces have been deployed across Canada on Operation Lentus to evacuate Canadians from dangerous wildfires, and that work continues in Sandy Lake today, Mr. Speaker. The contributions of our brave forces at home and around the world are simply and incredibly remarkable, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Agincourt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right now, trade diversification is top of mind for many of the small businesses in Scarborough Agincourt and also for Canadians across the country. Our new Minister of International Trade has already met with counterparts and business partners in South America and Europe. Can the Minister of International Trade tell us how he plans to diversify Canada's trade portfolio in the current geopolitical climate?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from Scarborough Agincourt for her tireless advocacy. Mr. Speaker, I've hit the ground running. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Ecuador meeting with regional leaders and marking the conclusion of a new trade agreement that's to come. Last week, I was in Paris meeting with a dozen trade ministers to talk trade and economic opportunities. Mr. Speaker, Canada has what the world needs. I will continue working with industry leaders to discuss opportunities around the Indo-Pacific, European Union, and many regions around the world. Mr. Speaker, trade diversification will help create jobs here at home and help build the fastest growing economy in the G7. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, the Arrive Scam contractors made off with $64 million of taxpayer dollars. Multiple software developers in Waterloo region have told me that a couple of them could have done it over a weekend. The contractors didn't write any code. Their only job was to make sure the actual code writers had the proper security clearances. But today the Auditor General tells us they didn't even manage to do that. Meanwhile, the F-35 program is 50% over budget. That's $14 billion over budget, and we still don't have any jets. Could the Prime Minister perhaps produce a budget accounting for all of this? Could that budget perhaps include less fraud and waste?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. I would also like to thank the Auditor General for her work and her recommendations. We've acted upon previous reports to make sure there's more accountability and transparency from our providers, because we'll always hold them to account. And so, Mr. Speaker, my department in March 2024 revoked GC Strategy's clearance, ended all contracts, and last week the company has been deemed inadmissible for 7 years. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister keeps saying that he won't be able to impose a pipeline without the agreement of the provinces. The problem is that his Bill C5 does not say that at all. In fact, it says quite the opposite. In fact, once a project is deemed to be in the national interest, it's over. It's over. Game over. Neither the provinces, nor the First Nations, nor Canadians, nor Quebecers, nor cities will be able to stop it. It will happen, whatever the cost, and it will take 2 years at most. That's a huge gift for big companies. Why does the Prime Minister, who was elected to prevent the Conservatives from winning, think it's a good idea to realise Pierre Poilievre's wildest and most dangerous dreams? The Honourable Minister for Transport and Domestic Trade. Mr. Speaker, 1 week ago I was in Saskatoon with the Prime Minister and the Premiers of provinces and territories, including the Premier of Quebec. Every single Premier talked about the need to build significant projects throughout Canada. For example, the projects in Montreal. I spoke about my Montreal projects with Minister Guilbeault of Quebec. We have to build Canada, and we must do so together.
Honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were shocked to learn that Indian Prime Minister Modi has been invited to the G7 meetings here. This is deeply troubling and hurtful for the Sikh community and for all Canadians that are concerned about human rights and foreign interference. And now we find out that the Saudi leader has also been invited. This G7 is becoming, honestly, it's becoming a showcase of tyrants. Will this Prime Minister rescind those invitations and make sure that the people coming to this G7 believe in human rights and believe in people, not profits?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and I have spoken with our Indian counterparts, and there has been an agreement for continued law enforcement dialogue. I will say, Mr. Speaker, that the G7 is a critical forum for global leaders to have productive and frank discussions. The RCMP's independent investigation is ongoing, and in this country, the rule of law will never be compromised. We will always stand up for the safety and security of Canadians. Thank you.
And that brings question period to a close.
Yeah, there's still time for more.
3:05, buddy.
Comme il est.
That was only 45 minutes.
3 o'clock, 3:04 to be precise. The House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Hallan relating to the business of supply. Call in the members.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, they're just doing a vote on Hallan's motion, which I believe is around budgetary policy and food inflation. I haven't actually read the motion, so I'm not 100% sure what's in it. But I imagine it's some sort of measures for reducing in spending by the government. And probably, to make sure they table a budget, which they haven't. So they're going to vote on this. There's a vote call, so that's 15 minutes, and then they have time to vote, and then it's counting, so it'll probably be like a half-hour thing. We're going to switch over to committee here. It starts in 23 minutes. I will pin this message up at the top as well, but here's a link in chat. Committee is going to be proc today. It's our first committee back for the 45th Parliament. The first order of business is to elect a new chair. There's 5 Liberals, 4 Conservatives, and 1 Bloc member. And hopefully right after that, they get to talking about the main estimates and things like that. We'll see, though. So we'll watch this for another couple minutes, but then we'll switch over.
The question is as follows. Mr. Hallan, seconded by Mr. Lefebvre, moved that, given that, 1, the Prime Minister said, shall I dispense? Given that the Prime Minister said he will be held to account by prices Canadians pay at the grocery store, 2, under the Liberal government, food inflation continues to rise, forcing families to eat less nutritious foods. 3, Canadian families will pay $16,834 for food this year, an $800 increase from last year. The House call on the government to present a fiscally responsible budget before the House adjourns for the summer that reverses Liberal inflationary policies so Canadians can afford to put food on the table. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favour of the motion, please rise.
Mr. Strong.
Mr. Straw.
Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Schmale.
Mr. Schmale.
Mr. Brock.
Mr. Brock.
Mr. Bazan.
Mr. Bazan.
Mrs. Block.
Mrs. Block.
Mrs. Thomas.
Mrs. Thomas.
Monsieur Deltel.
Monsieur Deltel.
Monsieur Paulus.
Monsieur Paulus.
Mr. Upal.
Mr. Upal.
Mr. Halland.
Mr. Halland.
Miss Lewis Haldeman Norfolk.
Ms. Lewis Haldeman Norfolk.
Miss Dancho.
Miss Dancho.
Mr. Chong.
Mr. Chong.
Mrs. Kuzi.
Mrs. Kuzi.
Mrs. Stubbs.
Mrs. Stubbs.
Mr. Barlow.
Mr. Barlow.
Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Lake.
Mr. Lake.
Mr. D'Entremont.
Mr. D'Entremont.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Small.
Mr. Small.
Mr. Major.
Mr. Major.
Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Zimmer.
Monsieur Brassard.
Monsieur Brassard.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore.
Monsieur Berthold.
Monsieur Berthold.
Mr. Duncan.
Mr. Duncan.
Mr. Workington.
Mr. Workington.
Mr. Canna.
Mr. Canna.
Mrs. Roberts.
Mrs. Roberts.
Mr. Morin.
Mr. Morin.
Mr. Ross.
Mr. Ross.
Madame Bien.
Madame Vien.
Monsieur Godin.
Monsieur Godin.
Monsieur Martel.
Monsieur Martel.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Aitchison.
Mr. Aitchison.
Mr. Caputo.
Mr. Caputo.
Mr. Van Popta.
Mr. Van Popta.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly.
Monsieur Généreux.
Monsieur Généreux.
Monsieur Mallette, Kapiskasing Timmins, Mushkekwa.
Monsieur Marit, Capscating, Timmins, Mushkegawak.
Monsieur Lefebvre.
Monsieur Lefebvre.
Mr. Steinley.
Mr. Steinley.
Mr. Viss.
Mr. Viss.
Mr. Lobb.
Mr. Lobb.
Mr. Baldinelli.
Mr. Baldinelli.
Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Davidson.
Ms. Gladu.
Ms. Gladu.
Mr. Calkins.
Mr. Calkins.
Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Bragdon.
Mr. Bragdon.
Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Tucker.
Miss Rude.
Ms. Rude.
Mrs. Goodridge.
Mrs. Goodridge.
Mrs. Falk, Battlefords Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Mrs. Falk, Battleford Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Mr. Malillo.
Mr. Malillo.
Mr. Muse.
Mr. Muse.
Mr. Shipley.
Mr. Shipley.
Mr. Tolmie.
Mr. Tolmie.
Mr. Redicott.
Mr. Redicott.
Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Arnold.
Mrs. Gallant.
Mrs. Gallant.
Mr. Reed.
Mr. Reed.
Mr. Hoback.
Mr. Hoback.
Mr. Allison.
Mr. Allison.
Mr. Menegakis.
Mr. Menegakis.
Mr. Wilkinson. Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Falk, Provencher.
Mr. Falk Provencher.
Mr. Aboultaïv.
Mr. Aboutaif.
Mr. Diot.
Mr. Diot.
Mr. Macaulay.
Mr. Macaulay.
Mr. Vierson.
Mr. Vierson.
Mrs. Wagenthal.
Mrs. Wagenthal.
Mr. Mott.
Mr. Motts.
Mr. Dalton.
Mr. Dalton.
Mr. Dowdle.
Mr. Dowdle.
Mr. Epp.
Mr. Epp.
Mrs. Jansen.
Mrs. Jansen.
Mr. Cram.
Mr. Cram.
Mr. Lewis, Essex.
Mr. Lewis, Essex.
Mr. McLean, Calgary Centre.
Mr. McLean.
Just for heads up purposes, so the House only sits for next week, and then they are done until September. So if this passes, that means the government would have to come up with a budget pretty much over the weekend and table it on Monday. I can guarantee you, even if this passes, the Liberals are going to make some excuse that they need more time or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mr. Bexty.
Mr. Bonk.
Mr. Bonk.
Miss Cobenia.
Miss Cobenia.
Mrs. Cody.
Mrs. Cody.
Mr. Davies, Niagara South.
Mr. Davies, Niagara South.
Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson.
Mrs. DeRitter.
Mrs. DeRitter.
Mr. Gill, Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Gill, Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Gill, Brampton West.
Mr. Gill, Brampton West.
Mr. Gill, Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Gill, Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Gill, Windsor West.
Mr. Gill, Windsor West.
Mr. Gill, Abbotsford, South Langley.
Mr. Gill, Abbotsford, South Langley.
Mr. Grollo.
Monsieur Grollo.
Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Guglielmin.
Mr. Guglielmin.
Mr. Gunn.
Mr. Gunn.
Monsieur Hardy.
Monsieur Hardy.
Mr. Ho.
Mr. Ho.
Mr. Holman.
Mr. Holman.
Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Kibble.
Mr. Kibble.
Miss Kirkland.
Miss Kirkland.
Mrs. Conans.
Mrs. Conans.
Miss Cronus.
Miss Cronus.
Mr. Ruff.
Mr. Ruff.
Mr. Currick, Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Kirk, Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Ma.
Mr. Ma.
Mr. Mahal.
Mr. Mahal.
Mr. Mantle.
Mr. Mantle.
Mr. Mackenzie.
Mr. Mackenzie.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Rowe.
Mr. Rowe.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Stevenson.
Monsieur Garon.
Monsieur Garon.
Monsieur Simard.
Monsieur
Okay, so
Simard.
Blocker in favor.
Monsieur Fortin.
That's what I thought.
Fortin.
Monsieur Thériault.
Monsieur Thériault.
Monsieur Perron.
Monsieur Perron.
Monsieur Deschênes.
Monsieur Deschênes.
So the only way this doesn't pass is if the NDP go along with the Liberals, which I don't think that's going to happen. The NDP are in favor of Liberals tabling a budget.
Madame Larouche.
Madame Larouche.
Madame de Bellefeuille.
Madame de Bellefeuille.
Madame Gaudreau.
Madame Gaudreau.
Monsieur Beaulieu.
Monsieur Beaulieu.
Monsieur Barcelot-Duval.
Monsieur Barcelot-Duval.
Monsieur Blanchet-Jonca.
Monsieur Blanchet-Jonca.
Monsieur Lemire.
Monsieur Lemire.
All those opposed to the motion will please rise.
Mr. Carney.
Mr. Carney.
Madame Diab.
Madame Diab.
Mr. McDonald-Malpec.
Mr. McDonald-Malpec.
Mr. McGuinty.
Like all the Liberals are looking over at the NDP.
Mr. Robertson.
Mr. Robertson.
Miss Freeland.
Miss Freeland.
Mr. McKinnon-Gatineau.
Mr. McKinnon-Gatineau.
Mr. Bruson.
Mr. Bruson.
Miss Thompson.
Miss Thompson.
Mr. Ananda Sangare.
Mr. Ananda Sangare.
Madame Michel.
Madame Michel.
Monsieur Guilbeault.
Monsieur Guilbeault.
Mr. Fraser.
Mr. Fraser.
Mr. Sidhu Brampton East.
Mr. Sidhu Brampton East.
Miss Olszewski.
Ms. Olszewski.
Mrs. Valdez.
Mrs. Valdez.
Monsieur Duclos.
Monsieur Duclos.
Mr. Hussain.
Mr. Hussain.
Ms. Gould.
Ms. Gould.
Mr. Blair. Back to Madame Fitzpatrick.
Madame Fitzpatrick.
Mr. Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Miss Fry.
Miss Fry.
Miss Chager.
Miss Chager.
Mr. Osborne.
Mr. Osborne.
Mr. Fragascados.
Mr. Fragascados.
Mr. Fuhr.
Mr. Fuhr.
Mr. Vancouverden.
Mr. Vancouverden.
Miss Gainey.
Miss Gainey.
Madame Provost.
Madame Provost.
Miss Sahota.
Miss Sahota.
Mr. Belanger. Desnete, Mrs. Nippy, Churchill River.
Mr. Belanger. Desnete, Mrs. Nippy, Churchill River.
Mrs. McKnight.
Mrs. McKnight.
Miss Chartrand.
Miss Chartrand.
Mr. Garrettson.
Mr. Garrettson.
Miss Anand.
Miss Anand.
Miss Alty.
Miss Alty.
Mrs. Galmasti.
Mrs. Galmasti.
Someone just yelled you're a sellout.
Mr. Sarai.
Mrs. McLean, Esquimalt, Saanich Souk.
Mrs. McLean, Esquimalt, Saanich Souk.
Mr. Long.
Mr. Long.
Mr. Zaricelli.
Mr. Zaricelli.
Madame Chanette.
Madame Chanette.
Miss Latanzio.
Miss Latanzio.
Mr. Nakvi.
Mr. Nakvi.
Mr. Housefather.
Mr. Housefather.
Madame Menard.
Madame Menard.
Miss Jazek.
Miss Jazek.
Mr. Beach.
Mr. Beach.
Miss Grove.
Miss Grove.
Mr. Dogood.
Mr. Dogood.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Dollywall.
Mr. Dollywall.
Madame Châtel.
Madame Châtel.
Mrs. Romanado.
Mrs. Romanado.
Mr. Kellaway.
Mr. Kellaway.
Mr. Dogood.
Lewis.
Correction, Mr. Louis Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Louis Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Assassi.
Mr. Assassi.
Mr. Leitao.
Mr. Leitao.
Mr. Bardisi.
Mr. Bardisi.
Madame Kayabaga.
Madame Kayabaga.
Mr. Lamoureux.
Mr. Lamoureux.
Madame Brière.
Madame Brière.
Mr. Grant.
Mr. Grant.
Monsieur Gay.
Monsieur Gay.
Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Hogan.
Monsieur Ramsey.
Monsieur Ramsey.
Madame Koutrakis.
Madame Koutrakis.
Miss Chi.
Miss Chi.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. Miles.
Mr. Biddle.
Mr. Biddle.
Miss Dillon.
Miss Dillon.
Miss Zerowitz.
Miss Zerowitz.
Monsieur El Khoury.
Monsieur El Khoury.
Mr. Fergus.
Mr. Fergus.
Mr. Fonseca.
Mr. Fonseca.
Monsieur Yacono.
Monsieur Yacono.
Monsieur Lauzon.
Monsieur Lauzon.
Mr. Maloney.
Mr. Maloney.
Miss Suds.
Miss Suds.
Madame Desrochers.
Madame Desrochers.
Mrs. McKelvey.
Mrs. McKelvey.
Mr. Gasparo.
Mr. Gasparo.
Mr. Hanley.
Mr. Hanley.
Madame Rochefort.
Madame Rochefort.
Mr. Casey.
Mr. Casey.
Mr. Blois.
Mr. Blois.
Madame Bendayen.
Madame Bendayen.
Madame Fortier.
Madame Fortier.
Mr. Oliphant.
Mr. Oliphant.
Mr. Baptiste.
Mr. Baptiste.
Mr. Claassen.
Mr. Claassen.
Madame Lavac.
Madame Lavac.
Mr. Turnbull.
Mr. Turnbull.
Miss Church.
Miss Church.
Mr. McKinnon, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. McKinnon, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Schiffke.
Mr. Schiffke.
Miss Sidhu Brampton South.
Miss Sidhu Brampton South.
Miss Vandenbeld.
Miss Vandenbeld.
Mrs. Zaid.
Mrs. Zaid.
Madame Lambropoulos.
Madame Lambropoulos.
Miss Yip.
Miss Yip.
Mr. Baker.
Mr. Baker.
Madame Lalonde.
Madame Lalonde.
Mr. Pulowski.
Mr. Pulowski.
Mr. Weiler.
Mr. Weiler.
Mr. Ailfson.
Mr. Ailfson.
Madame Lapointe, Rivière-des-Mille-Îles.
Madame Lapointe, Rivière-des-Mille-Îles.
Mr. Baines.
Mr. Baines.
Mr. Coteau.
Mr. Coteau.
Mr. Gahir.
Mr. Gahir.
Miss Hefner.
Miss Hefner.
Madame Lapointe, Sudbury.
Madame Lapointe, Sudbury.
Mr. Sousa.
Mr. Sousa.
Mr. Carr.
Mr. Carr.
Miss Akan.
Miss Akan.
Mr. Al Saoud.
Mr. Al Saoud.
Madame Auguste.
Madame Auguste.
Mr. Chang.
Mr. Chang.
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Connors.
Mr. Connors.
Madame Dandurand.
Madame Dandurand.
Mr. Danko.
Mr. Danko.
Mr. Deschênes-Thériault.
Mr. Deschênes-Thériault.
Mr. Earl.
Mr. Earl.
Miss Fancy.
Miss Fancy.
Mr. Fanjoy.
Mr. Fanjoy.
Mr. Greaves.
Mr. Greaves.
Miss Harrison.
Miss Harrison.
Miss Hurdle.
Miss Hurdle.
Mr. Joseph.
Monsieur Joseph.
Mr. Lavoie.
Monsieur Lavoie.
Mr. McDonald Cardigan.
Mr. McDonald Cardigan.
Mr. Mallet Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Mallet Bay of Quinte.
Miss Miedema.
Miss Miedema.
Madame Mingarelli.
Madame Mingarelli.
Miss Nathan.
Miss Nathan.
Miss Wien.
Miss Wien.
Mr. Toomba.
Mr. Toomba.
Miss O'Rourke.
Miss O'Rourke.
Mr. Rana.
Mr. Rana.
Miss Royer.
Miss Royer.
Mr. Saini.
Mr. Saini.
Mr. Sari.
Mr. Sari.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Miss Sodi.
Miss Sodi.
Mr. St. Pierre.
Mr. St. Pierre.
Miss Tesser Dirksen.
Miss Tesser Dirksen.
Mr. Villeneuve.
Mr. Villeneuve.
Mr. Watchorn.
Mr. Watchorn.
Mr. Boulris.
Monsieur Boulris.
La période.
The time for electronic voting has now ended. If members had any technical difficulties, they may now use the raise hand function. When we resume, I would encourage members who experience technical difficulties to identify themselves.
Okay, so these are the people that aren't in the House that still get to vote. Or they're just in the House and they had technical difficulties, things like that. Sorry, now they're showing in general. It's like some of these people are in the House. They're kind of mixing them, but usually they just show people who were not in the House. And then we go to committee in 10 minutes. So as soon as this vote's done, you're going to see a lot of the House empty up. Anybody who's got committee to attend to will go to that. Everybody else just kind of screws off for the day. And as I mentioned before, they only have next week where they are sitting, and that is it. That is it till September.
If members were unable to vote due to technical difficulties, they may now use the raise hand function, and the chair will recognize them.
Yeah, so that's not going to pass.
I don't see anybody.
NDP voted nay.
The table will now compile the results of the vote.
Should be 166 nay and 175 or 4 yay. Yeah, 174. I got that right.
I declare the motion defeated.
Vote fails.
I wish to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset, and I'll wait a couple of moments to allow members to disperse quietly.
Okay, so we're going over to committee. We got a 9-minute break, so I'm just going to go ahead and get myself a cup of joe, and we are going to live stream committee. So try and head over to that, guys. We'll also be live for question period tomorrow as well. Same time if you don't want to join us for committee, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same on Thursday. We'll be live for that as well. So if you just want to join us for the question periods, you're more than welcome to. But committees are quite important. A lot of stuff does usually happen in them. The first order of business for the committee is to elect a chair. So I'm hoping they get to some orders of business after that, like talking about the main estimates. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and tune over to that. So the link should be up top in the chat, guys. I'm going to put it in here again in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and click on that and join us for the committee. If not, we will see you tomorrow for question period live. So thanks, guys, and hop on over